All right, it is the last night in Whitefish, Montana. Headed back to the 49ers facility tomorrow. Local pro day on its way. News is starting to roll in. We're going to go through some of that news now, but I figured we have to go live from Montana with a big mountain in Whitefish behind us. We skied that one a couple days earlier this week. Hopefully, you've enjoyed all the content. Now we have some more from the training that is happening, including, well, who do we look at first? Jake Moody or Brandon Aiyuk? I think, well, Jake Moody, why don't we take a look at Moody? Because he had a nice kick the other day working out.
$66.
That is 66 yards for Jake Moody. Of course, now he's got to do it with a rush. He has to do it in a game. But in an unrelated video, Brandon Aiyuk was fired up coming to the 49ers facility.
Wake y'all ass up, man.
Made a video, one of the first videos I made here from Montana, up on the mountain behind me, up at Whitefish. You could see the runs back there behind me. One of the first videos was Brandon Aiyuk's stock seems to be rising. I know the Warriors just started, and he was at the Warriors game the other night. They're in Phoenix as I speak right now. But the other night he was at the home game. He was at one of the wins that the Warriors had in that 7-game win streak. And he was courtside and seemed to be having a good time, gave Steph Curry a high five after a big three. I think it was the win against Denver, who has since fired their coach and their general manager. Just wild how quickly that happens in the NBA. Didn't the Nuggets just win the title 2 seasons ago? Anyway, Aiyuk was there courtside, and it just made me think, this is a guy who's obviously going to be with the 49ers in 2025. The April 1st option has triggered, so San Francisco has those cap hits on its books prorated over the course of the next 5 years. Even if they had wanted to trade him, it wasn't going to happen with a torn ACL and torn MCL. And the 49ers' best path forward and Brandon Aiyuk's best path forward is to make this work, period. Find a way to make it work. The guy was downright great in 2023. So I understand that the knee's torn up right now. I understand that he may not be back for week 1. But then we heard from Kyle Shanahan last week at the owners' meetings in Palm Beach, and Shanahan said that it actually wasn't ruled out, the week 1 return. So that was a whole lot more optimistic than the midseason date that Adam Schefter had casually tossed around about a week before that. Anyway, we don't know right now. And Aiyuk is, according to Dr. Neil Elatrosh, who performed the knee surgery, is doing well. But doing well coming back from an ACL and an MCL, which was torn in October, may mean that he's not ready for the first several weeks of the year. I think probably the most likely scenario is that they put him on PUP and he has to miss the first 4 games. Either way, the 49ers and Aiyuk, the best path forward, sometimes you just have to make lemonade out of lemons. The best path forward is to figure this out with Aiyuk on this team as the X receiver whenever he's healthy and ready to go. Well, he has a legacy to play for. These guys are proud beyond just money. Obviously, he has signed the contract that gives him the injury guarantee. But I do think that there is a lot more in the department of motivation than just the paycheck. And otherwise, these players wouldn't have made it to the NFL in the first place and then made that second contract in the NFL in the first place. So the 49ers need Brandon Aiyuk. I think it's good that he's at the team facility. He's fired up. He's posting about it. A year ago at this time, a video like the one that I just showed you would have gone viral because every single time Brandon Aiyuk posted anything, it went viral as we were waiting for that contract to get done. Well, now the contract's done. The 49ers are locked in with it for better or for worse. But Brandon Aiyuk is a talent that's trying to come back from this knee injury, doing some work at the facility, who can make this offense a whole lot better moving forward if he can return to even just 80% of his former self. That's all that San Francisco needs. 80% of his former self, he's going to be one of the better separators in football. And maybe it's not an Achilles, right? The ACL and the MCL and the knee, I think that we understand it a lot better than we understood it 20 or 30 years ago. With Jerry Rice obviously being the exception about 20 or 30 years ago when he tore his ACL week 1 against Tampa Bay, but somehow returned later that season to score a touchdown against Denver. But even Jerry Rice re-injured himself that year, right? So the returns from the ACL weren't all too quick back then. Now, and even if they, were a little bit quicker, you would say, okay, this could slow a player down for the rest of his career. Now, I don't think that we look at the ACL, even if it's complicated by an MCL, as that type of injury. The proper surgery, the proper rehab can bring a player back to full speed. I think we still look at the Achilles as something, when it ruptures, that as something that could permanently set a player back. I think that's the new ACL. But I think that there is reason to believe that even though it might take time, that Brandon Aiyuk can get back to full speed. And at full speed, the guy was a hell of a separator. And that separation ability was sorely missed by the 49ers last year. Anyway, I want to run through some more news. Today, we found out that Charles Grant, this is an offensive line prospect that is very intriguing because he comes from a small school, William and Mary. 49ers plan to host a private workout with Charles Grant. 6'4", 311 pounds. He's got 34 and 3/4 inch arms. So nearly 35-inch arms. That is prototypical tackle length with his arms. He's a really, really good run blocker, and he has experience, albeit at a lower level in college. But because this was a lower level guy, he might last until the middle rounds of the draft. Maybe some of this testing, some of the fact that the arms are nearly 35 inches long for Charles Grant, maybe that pushes him up to the second round. But I think he's still going to be in a spot where he's not going to go at the very top of the draft like a Will Campbell, like an Armand Membu. There's Kelvin Banks as well, who's probably going to go a little bit lower than those two guys. I think it's very easy to put two and two together and say the 49ers are very interested in drafting a premier tackle in this class. In fact, when this regime first stepped in back in 2017, they immediately let us know that they have three premium positions: quarterback, edge rusher, and tackle. Within the first 2 years, we saw the 49ers add as much as they could at those positions, especially within the first 3 years, the 2019 NFL draft, when they finally found the edge in Nick Bosa that they wanted. But even Solomon Thomas, I mean, yes, the pick didn't work out, but the vision to build up the defensive line from the edge to the inside was there in 2017. So anyway, tackle is one of those premium positions. They already had Joe Staley aboard in 2017. They added Mike McGlinchey in 2018. And then they added Trent Williams via trade. And we could look back at how good of a deal that was for the 49ers. What was it, a fifth-round pick for Trent Williams to Washington in 2020? So they have been rock solid at the highest levels of investment at the offensive line, but now it's time for more. Right? People complain, no, the 49ers don't spend on the O-line. Well, they've spent to, first-round draft capital before, but that's not something that lasts forever. Trent Williams is my age. He's 36 years old now. I would say that San Francisco could use better play from the right side of the offensive line, even though Colton McKivitz was a whole lot better in 2024 than he was in 2023. They got that right side figured out with Dominic Pooney at the right guard position. So this is a draft where you take your high standards, because the 49ers have very high standards of tackle. They don't like to go for the players who can't move the way that they need them to move. You take your high standards and you say, can we use that number 11 overall pick to find somebody who fits those high standards? Or will a player like Charles Grant from William & Mary, small school, slip through the cracks of that, first round and be there for the taking somewhere else in the draft, starting at the second round, where the 49ers can grab him, not use their very premium pick, but still net an offensive lineman who fits the measurables that they're looking for at the position. He's a quick mover with a big frame, plays with violent and active hands. I'm reading the scouting report right now. Moves laterally and with a purpose. I mean, this is all stuff that Kyle Shanahan eats up. Chris Furster, offensive line coach, can eat this up as well. Backside hinge blocks are clean and effective. Again, 6'4", 311. Maybe a little bit on the shorter end, because the 49ers before, in the past, when they used the first-round pick on a tackle, Mike McGlinchey was, 6'7" or 6'8"? But with you look at the height because you're worried about the arm length, and you need to be able to keep the edge rushers at bay. With 34 and 3/4 inch arms, I think that somebody like Charles Grant has the length that the 49ers need. I would even argue that with that kind of arm length, maybe the 6'4" height is a benefit for San Francisco. You have a slightly shorter quarterback. So if you got a 6'7", 6'8" offensive lineman, it's going to be even harder to see. for somebody like Brock Purdy. But B, somebody like Charles Grant moves really well, run blocking wise. I think you move a little bit better if you're a little bit shorter. The agility is going to be greater. So, I always talked about this in swimming. You guys know that's the sport that I did at a higher level. But Michael Phelps was awesome in swimming because he was built in a way that was extremely rare. You want to have long feet. You want to have these flippers to swim well, but you don't want to have long legs because that's just going to be drag, right? So you could have the flippers with the long feet, but the long legs are dead weight. Michael Phelps had short legs and long feet, and it was a combination that you didn't often see, but it made him a really, really damn good swimmer because he had the best of both worlds. I would argue that in the case of a defensive back at the nickel back position, you actually want them to be shorter so they have more agility, but you still want them to have the longer arms so they can still get the arms in the passing lane. But that's often a combination that you don't see. I would say that at offensive tackle, you can argue that somebody with the long arms to keep the edge rushers at bay, like Charles Grant, who's a little bit shorter at 6'4" instead of the 6'6", 6'7" of other offensive tackles, may actually be what the 49ers want in their system because you have to move in San Francisco's offensive scheme. Kyle Shanahan wants those offensive linemen to get out to the edge. He wants those offensive linemen. They're reach blocks. There are pull blocks. This harkens back to the 49ers looking for the athletic offensive lineman back in the 80s with Bob McKittrick, looking for guys who could get out into space, zone blocking scheme. That obviously started with Alex Gibbs with the Denver Broncos under Mike Shanahan. But Kyle Shanahan takes a lot of pieces of the past, implements them in the 49ers scheme. But I think the movement ability of these offensive tackles makes them so hard for the 49ers to find because you don't often find big guys that can move in the way that the 49ers need them to. Other news, I know that we're populating the 30 list for the 49ers. Those are the 30 visits that San Francisco is allowed. They can host players at the team facility. We already know a few of those. Every time a visit comes out, I report it. And the next one is Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. This is a Georgia defensive lineman who probably is going to go a little bit later in the draft. But this is the kind of raw prospect whom Chris Kosarik, I think, would love to work with. Let's get the Brandon Aiyuk video out of there, and let's get Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins' relative athletic score up on the page. Take a look at this. I mean, the weight is not great, right? He's 276 pounds, and if he's going to be playing defensive tackle as he's classified against defensive tackles here, that's going to be on the light side. But defensive tackles have succeeded from lighter weights as of late, and this guy is lined up at all 9 techniques across the defensive line in college. So it's somebody who the 49ers might be able to pick in the 6th round, a little bit later in the draft. I mean, he only had 4 sacks over his college career at Georgia. So this is a late blooming type of player who has the physical characteristics to be moldable clay for the 49ers defensive line. 6'4" height, but look at the vertical. 36 inches on the vertical. Look at the broad jump, over 10 feet on the broad jump. Look at the 40, 4.8 on the 40. The 10-yard split under 1.7. 3 cone and short shuttle time. That short shuttle is elite for somebody who weighs 276 pounds. 4.34 short shuttle for Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. He's going to be one of the 49ers' 30 visits out of the University of Georgia. That was just reported today. So keep an eye on that as the 49ers continue to work guys out, or, private workout for Charles Grant. That's the offensive lineman out of William & Mary. But Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, that's a bigger school guy. Funny enough, though, probably more of a raw prospect than the guy from the smaller school in Charles Grant on the opposite side of the ball. Bigger school guy, buried behind a lot of talented Georgia players on that line, but has the just epically good athletic metrics. I think the 49ers in general, when we talk about how they've adapted over the years, John Lynch talked about it in Palm Beach, where it was much warmer than it is here in Montana. Those of you joining in, that's Whitefish Mountain. That's where we skied the other night. Now we're here on the deck, thanks to Mark Major. Shout out to Mark Major, big 49ers fan. But, when we were talking the other day about who the 49ers, look for in the NFL draft and how their process has evolved over the course of the years. In Palm Beach, John Lynch mentioned that he thinks the 49ers have found and struck the right balance. He thinks they found a formula that works for them, and hence they saw a lot of the success in 2024. 2022 and 2023 were rough for San Francisco. Something had to work better in 2024, and sometimes it's just luck of the draw. The draft is going to be a crapshoot, but I would say that the amount of success that they saw in volume in 2024 versus what they didn't see in 2022 and 2023, that speaks to a good process. I don't think that you just luck into the type of haul that the 49ers had last season. I mean, Dominic Pooney, day one starter for San Francisco at that right guard position, right? Malik Mustafa, that's a player who I think is going to be a Pro Bowler. When you look at the coverage metrics from Mustafa last year, they're the top of all safeties in the NFL. And they found this guy in the fourth round. Isaac Guerendo, they found this guy in the fourth round, and it immediately unseated Jordan Mason as soon as he got healthy as the versatile dual threat running back that the 49ers need. And, you know, we haven't even seen a full buildup for Ricky Pearsall. We've seen 18 targets and 17 catches over the course of the over the last two games of the season, but we haven't seen Ricky Pearsall have a chance to really get into a flow of the season over, you know, a large handful of games, because obviously he got shot in the chest last year before the season started. He was part of that 2024 draft. Renardo Green, it wasn't a day one starter, but he was a month two starter for the 49ers. That was a good haul. So it really seems to me that when John Lynch said that the 49ers found the right formula, the right mix of how to attack the draft last year, it seems that the data, the results back that up. The 49ers really do have the players in the system to speak for good drafting. And I think one of the things that they did differently last year, and this is just my read on it from the outside, they trusted their R&D department. They trusted research and development a whole lot more than they had in years prior. And R&D is going to look at stuff like this, like the relative athletic score. They're going to look at specific traits that they think can translate into specific success within what the 49ers do systematically. So the coaches are going to be talking to the scouting department. The scouting department is going to be using its R&D wing to bring specific metrics like like Chris Kasarik, it's the GTFO, get the F off the ball score. The 49ers saw that in Robert Beal a couple of years ago, for example. He also went to Georgia, just like Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. They saw the particular metrics that they liked, and they said, okay, hey, this guy, it's not going to cost all that much. He's going to be a fifth-round pick. He's been good on special teams for the 49ers, hasn't blossomed as a pass rusher yet, but they're going to find that particular measurement and try to translate that into success within their system. And I think last year, between Pooney, Mustafa, Pearsall, Renardo Green, Isaac Guerendo especially, he was a hell of an athlete. He had a relative athletic score that was similar to Saquon Barkley's, but he was underused in college because of those injuries, so he slipped until the fourth round. That's the type of player that the 49ers went after last season, and it worked, and I think that they're going to have an R&D focus heading into this 2025 NFL draft again. I think that is what John Lynch is inferring when he says that they found a good process that they like, that gives them some confidence with these 11 picks. So a little bit earlier showed you Jake Moody. Maybe we could take one more look at Jake Moody and the 66-yard field goal. Why don't we do this right here? I got to get this up on the screen for you guys. Here we go. Moody from 66 yards out, working out, because, you know, I want to end this talking about special teams. We're here in Montana, Whitefish, Montana, home of Eddie DeBartolo Jr. We see Moody blasting that football through the uprights. Brant Boyer, the 49ers' new special teams coordinator, has a place out here in Montana. It's his off-season home. He loves to fish. He loves the snowmobile as well. So Brant Boyer has been scouting kickers, including Adam Botkin, the University of Montana kicker, who has risen to prominence through YouTube, through social media. He's at 600,000 subscribers. Boyer scouted him the other day. 2 Montana connections there. And then you've got Colt Anderson. Today I was in a Walgreens here in Montana, and I saw a book that said the history of Montana football. Didn't have Joe Montana in it because he's not from here, although his name is the same as the states. But I flipped to a random page in the history of Montana football, and I saw Colt Anderson, who's actually Brian Boyer's assistant. So he's the assistant special teams coordinator for the 49ers. Colt Anderson is from Butte, Montana, so somewhere around here, probably south of here. We're near the Canadian border here in Whitefish. And Colt Anderson is the 49ers assistant special teams coordinator who played for the Montana Grizzlies, went on to the NFL, was the special teams coordinator of the Titans last year, and now has taken over as the assistant for Brant Boyer with the 49ers this season. So a decided Montana focus for the 49ers special teams leadership this year. Between Brant Boyer and Colt Anderson, you've got two big-time Montana guys, and San Francisco. That's obviously a huge part of the 49ers plan. If they can fix the special teams, they could probably vault themselves above 500 just with that one fix. That's how bad they were last year. They lost 65 expected points on special teams in 2024. That was the worst mark in the league. It was atrocious for the 49ers. So you get that a little bit better, and maybe all of a sudden you're back to 500. They've got to get the special teams and the defense away from the cellar of the league. The offense was good already last year. The offense can obviously be better with more health, but the putrid parts of the ball were defense and special teams. And I think for the final show here from Whitefish, Montana, it's perfect to mention that the special teams leadership, the new special teams leadership for the 49ers, has such a connection to this beautiful state. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the content from here. Go watch the Warriors. Go watch the Giants. Wanted to give you the quick rundown. Jake Moody nails the 66-yard field goal. Brandon Aiyuk back at the facility, fired up. I would say that stock's still up for Brandon Aiyuk. 49ers are going to work out Charles Grant, the very promising offensive tackle out of William and Mary, small school guy. Maybe he falls a little bit into a manageable portion of the draft. And they're going to host Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins out of the University of Georgia on a visit. One more thing, too. No international games expected. This is something that came out of the owners' meetings. I think I might have mentioned it last week. None are expected this year. Matt Mayoko, though, reported that in 2026, the 49ers will very, very likely be headed back to Mexico City to play in Estadio Azteca, which is the big soccer stadium there where they played against the Arizona Cardinals twice now. I think back in 2004 was the first international game, 49ers Cardinals in Mexico City at the old stadium. And then in 2022, they just killed the Cardinals. I was there for that one, and I remember how it was miserable getting around that stadium. They've got 100,000 seats and one elevator in the whole stadium, but not anymore. They renovated it. The renovation's almost done, or close to being done. And they're going to have more than one elevator in that iconic stadium that has seen a lot of good stuff. I think it's even seen World Cup. Yeah, I think it's seen a World Cup. So anyway, 49ers going to head back there in all likelihood in 2026, but not in 2025. No Berlin game, probably no London game either in 2025, although those still technically possible for San Francisco. All right, there's your 49ers update. Last one here from Montana. Time for me to hit the hot tub. We'll talk to you guys very soon.